what people don't realize that there are actually only 5% of true entrepreneurs in the world. They are really in minority.
5%.
5%. And when I went through this program in Canada, the Strategic Coach program, we tried to unearth what really makes an entrepreneur. One of the things that make an entrepreneur is that they tend to go against the mode. They are very free on thoko. I don't know how your Setswana is like. But anyway, stick with the English. They are easy. They easily break the mode. They go against the grain quite easily. Going against the grain is stressful. Okay, for you to run your business, I was listening to the former CEO of Uber saying, you can't succeed in business unless you work hard. So I worked so hard during my 30s, starting a business. My family suffered in terms of my time. I'll write about it in the book, coming back late at night and not having time to spend with the kids and my wife. At some stage, I almost got sick because of, you do strategy. I had 4 days with a client doing strategy. On the 5th day, I was seeing stars. My brain, something was happening. I was like, of course, you are working too hard. And then I tried to see, why do we work so hard? And there is what they call success addiction. There is what they call where you self-objectify yourself. In other words, when you read that,
I was just like, yo.
Yeah. When you become an object, almost detached from yourself to become a successful entrepreneur, a successful executive. These guys that walk around heading an SOE with a fancy car and all that. You check. Tony Robbins really, amazed me when he said he interviewed 50 billionaires. He said, in terms of happiness, he can only identify. He spent, over hours with them, talking to them, only 5 who are happy.
Sure.
So really, then I reflected and said, there's something just wrong with the way we don't visit the dark side of entrepreneurship, where time goes so fast, you're working so hard, material wealth become a big thing, the big house. And I said, no, man, life can be better than that. That's how the whole reflection of reducing this aspect of self-objectification, also success addiction, which leads to workaholism, that is really killing a lot of people.
Hello, I am Dr. Mandaj Flaro, and on this week's episode of the SuperLead Podcast series, we are joined by Oabona Kgengwenyane, who is the founder of InnoLead Consulting. And for over 20 years, he has advised businesses and entrepreneurs on how to manage their companies efficiently and effectively. And in this conversation, we unpack his fantastic book, InnoLead, Unpacking the Inner Game of African Entrepreneurship. Wawona, welcome to SuperLead Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Glad to be here, my man.
Oh, lovely. So talking about your name, Wabona, in the book already, you used to be called Michael.
Yeah.
So what happened?
You got a problem?
Because the book here says
it's true.
Wawona Michael, right?
Yeah.
And in the book you referred to it as you used to be called Michael.
Yes. No, this is what happened. I obviously born out of a typical African Christian family. Yeah. And Michael is actually named after my grandfather, who is Michael Micha Muilwa, from Dinokana in the Huruchi area. So I was named after him. He got the name through biblical and being baptized. So now when I finished, I studied in the UK. Yeah. So when I finished what you call Cambridge in Botswana, then I went to UK to do my engineering degree. So when I got there, actually it was just the very first weeks where you mingle with the first years and all that. So, and you go to the pub, you go to the pub. So this fellow 18-year-old came to me and said, we introduced each other, all that. And he said, why are you called Michael? And I was like, this English boy, never gone any place and all that. So and I said, Michael. And I reflected like, why am I called Michael? So it was a huge reflection in terms of us as Africans. Yes. That why do we give ourselves these foreign names? and actually pride in them.
Sure.
I mean, you got Africans who actually change their traditional African general names. I mean, if you go to Zambia, Zimbabwe, I've got a worker who's a Zimbabwean guy for our farm. He's called Hard Work. I mean, I got a guy called Punish. I mean, I went to one time at Victoria Falls. I was just laughing out to say, and we're going to be talking about happiness. And the issue is when I get into a restaurant, okay, then you see all these Africans. I've been to Ghana, I've been to Ethiopia, Kenya, and all that. You see all these Africans putting all these foreign names like Eva, Evelyn, Betty, what, and I ask them, what's your real name?
Okay.
And they start saying, no, my name is Hungai, or Efiwe. And I'm like, what a beautiful name.
Why don't you use that?
We want the people to understand. It's like people want to understand you. So it's a big problem. And for me, it is partly why Africa is not getting where we should be. That is why ever since Michael, I changed to my middle name. Wabona was my middle name.
Okay.
So from then onwards, I changed from Michael to Wabona, which is obviously our very African Setswana name. And I told anybody from the past to say, now I've been referred to Wabona ever since. That was 1990.
Wow.
That was 1990.
And now the book, you've got Wabona Michael.
Yes.
It's
yes.
So
Wabona is the main. Michael now is my middle name because unfortunately I can't take it away. I mean, it's got a lot of historical and lineage type connotations for
Lovely. Great. So writing a book, which I've done before, it's a painful experience, and the editing and all of that and the reflections. I wonder, in your busy life, why would you write a book like this? What's happening in a continent, in the world, that called this book out?
Yeah, very, very, very pertinent question, Manda, because first as Africans, we don't write, and we need to write our stories. I had been trying to do it for about 7 years to write the book. So obviously, as an entrepreneur, in consulting, I also run a farming business. I also run a tech business. So it's very, very tough to find time to write a book. But it's always been my vision, saying that I need to write my story for my kids and the grandkids and for the rest of the family, so that the posterity and the blueprint of who we are is actually rubber stamped. Okay, that's one. And then secondly, I have gone through quite an interesting experience as a young man, through brought up by a single mother, very abusive father, as you could have picked up, and all that. And I always as you go, the scientists say when you are young, in your 20s or 30s, you go through what they call a fluid type intelligence, which is bright, innovative, what. As you get into your 40s, you start synthesizing things and become what they call crystalline type of thinking. So I started putting all my information together and said, there's a story emanating out of here. That's why I decided that I'm going to really put it together and write a book. Now, because it is quite a daunting thing, as you said, writing a book is no joke. So what I did was, I used to attend, I think I talk about it in the book, I attended in 2015, I enrolled in a strategic coaching program in Canada called Strategic Coach, under one of the most prominent entrepreneurial coaches in the world. His name is Dan Sullivan. He's coached like close to 100,000 entrepreneurs across the world. He's really, really quite prominent. So when I was there with the rest of the entrepreneurs, I used to go there 3 times a year. Almost every quarter for workshops in terms of how to make my companies sustainable and self-managed, so that they become, more than just me. So there I met a lot of entrepreneurs. Dan writes a book every quarter. Every quarter he produces a book. And then obviously the rest of the entrepreneurs also write books. So I got a lot of inspiration from that. And I said, guys, I had started, but many years was a struggle. So I decided that I got to do this. So what I did, because the books that we write should not just be limited to downtown Gaborone in Botswana or Johannesburg. It should be books to actually educate the global audience. Because every time I was in these workshops in Toronto and Canada at Strategic Coach, they found the stories of an entrepreneur from Africa very unique. I talk about in the book about how, in the farming experience, we've got quite a cattle breeding enterprise where we get lions coming to feed on our cattle. So when I tell them about an experience with my son where we're chasing lions in the farm, they almost all fell off their chest. Said, man, you're having lions eating away your business. That's like, and you know what they said? Please put it in the book. Because you know, the people in the States, the people in Europe, the people in Asia want to hear African stories.
Yes.
Because it's all one way. We are busy buying their
We
books,
are
eating
consuming
their
them,
food
like we are.
and everything. And that's where, for me, that's where Africa is going to make it.
Sure.
So that's really the inspiration.
Oh,
that
beautiful.
came. And we really received very good feedback from across Africa, from globally. So we engaged a publisher in the States so that it gets marketed in the States as well. Yeah, so it was actually produced and marketed in the States.
Lovely.
A company called Ignite Soul. And the Entrepreneurial was also part of the strategic coach program. So we met through the program. And that's how the book came about, published and launched last year.
Beautiful.
So, InnoLead, yeah.
Beautiful. And before you were an entrepreneur, consultant, etc., you had a corporate journey. Just a few words on that.
You know, I think typical of the 90s, 80s type students of the time. I was an engineering student, was sponsored by Botswana, you know, the DBS, Botswana Government Partnership. So I worked in the mines as a start as an engineer. And quite a fantastic experience in terms of, you know, corporates they've got everything. They've got all the lights, all the buttons in terms of, you know, corporate operations, marketing, all the departments, HR, you know, that. So it's a very good grounding in terms of experience. But unfortunately, in this chasing of who am I, I've always had this thing. You know what Socrates said, you know thyself. And it really is a very fundamental affair of happiness. Is first knowing who you are. So while I was doing engineering, I found that I actually don't like this thing. Engineer, masters, did it all. But when I was starting to operate as a manager there, I found that is not my thing.
Sure.
And fortunately, there was an incident where they engaged a global international consulting firm to do work.
Yes.
And being one of the you know
the people on the client side.
Yeah. So I was appointed to be part of that team.
Stunning.
Johnson & Johnson was the company at the time. So did I not have fun?
And now,
yes, because I have my inquisitive mind, you know, global knowledge, methodologies for change, and obviously I also had a passion for the company to make sure that, you know, Botswana really blows out, which did not work out, but in the end, we contracted with the company that it was really not working because some of the stuff. Actually, I just said it was just a big question. In 2 years, if my vision does not align with the Botswana vision, I'll ask your permission for me to exit.
Sure.
And that's in 2 years' time. I went to management, the general manager in J.O.Y.R.E, and the J.O.Y.R.E mine is one of the mining operations. And then in the end, he said, "Look, this is beyond my paycheck. Please go see the MD at head office, the late Renchindo." And I met with him with the group HR lady, beautiful lady called Ma Fantan, who was a group HR for Botswana at the time. And we had that combat in terms of I wanted to do an MBA. Yeah. I wanted to apply scenario thinking, futuristic thinking for Botswana. Yes. That was 1998, 97.
Wow. With the Clem Santa.
Clem Santa. I met Clem Santa, and I even brought him to Botswana to discuss Botswana future scenarios and all that. But as it is, you know, unfortunately, the MD at the time did not believe all that stuff, and it was I felt very bad. You know why, Manda? It's because on the DBS side, you know, during the days of J.O.Y.R.E and all those type of guys, they had these high potential youngsters who will be identified through the Anglo, and then they will work as personal assistants to the Oppenheimers, and they'll go to Cambridge and Oxford to do PPE, politics, as future leaders. And then, you know, my MD didn't think that was relevant. He just told me, "Go back. I hear you're a good engineer. Go do the stuff. Go look after the conveyor belts and the gearboxes and those huge 300-ton trucks." And that's when I said that. Remember, I said 2 years. I said, this is the good time to actually exit because our visions are not. That's how I now went to the entrepreneurial journey. Started in 1999 when I resigned from corporate and went in to say, now I'm going to help businesses in Botswana and regionally to make them competitive, grow, and contribute to our GDPs and so on.
Lovely. And in the book, you have a beautiful story of Botswana, as part of kind of sharing your background. Some insights for those listening.
Especially these South Africans. The big brother next door. Now, just to educate the big brother next door, I know we are the small sister, whatever you want to call it.
I remember this phrase, these South Africans. I was supposed to travel to Botswana, and then they refused to
Yes,
let me in.
yes, I remember.
Because
From the airport, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't have 2 blank pages.
Yeah.
And then your response was like, these are the
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how we limit movement of our people by a simple thing like 2 pages that are left in a passport. I mean, these are processes that come from the West, and we take them, cut and paste, and we limit up. I mean, that was quite disappointing that we're doing work together in Botswana and you're supposed to, and you couldn't fly. But anyway, back to Botswana.
So
Back to
Tell me
Botswana.
about Botswana.
Yeah, no.
Tell these South Africans.
The Tsongas and the vendors. Now this is obviously your little neighbor, Botswana, who, with 2.6, 2.5 million people. We always say it's equivalent of just the Soweto or whatever. So a very small population, but a huge country, equivalent size of France. In terms of geographical size, so it's one of the biggest countries. So it's very sparsely populated, as you can imagine. A country that was that when the Boer trekkers and you have the Fetkanes in the 1900s, there was a feeling that it's a very dry place and really there was no interest in it. So that's why it kept so less populated. And then we had a couple of tribes because of the Mfetani wars. I don't know how much your history is.
No, not great.
I'll teach you about the Blood River and all the kind of stuff. But anyhow, so you had a lot of Bahurutsi, Batlokwa who actually fled onto the Botswana side when the trekkers and the Boers were approaching our borders on the Limpopo front. So even later on, now with Cecil John Rhodes coming into the picture towards the end of the 19th century, some of the chiefs were felt very threatened by the oncoming Boer. And just to go back a little bit, in 1852, actually the Boers did try to go into Botswana.
Okay.
And there was one of our most famous kings, King Sechele I of Bakwena. He collaborated with Kama of Bangwatu, with my king of Barolong at the time, and also of Bamaketse, and they formed a very, very powerful where they managed to chase away the Boers. Lots of losses in an area called Dimawe in Botswana, just west side of Gaborone. So it's currently, it's a very historic site from the Botswana side. So they managed, and the Boers actually crossed the border, went back to, so that was quite a momentous time. Had they won, we'll be talking something different. There was a good chance that that Botswana would be part of South Africa.
Yes.
Because a part of the
I was not going to need a passport.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be part of the Transvaal. But thanks to the leadership at the time. But this is a country that now there was a threat from Cecil John Rhodes. So the guys the 3 chiefs went to the Queen to ask for protection around 1885. So the British actually protected Botswana right up to independence in 1966. So at that time we were managed, or the executive were managing from Mafikeng. Mafikeng was the capital of the Bechuanaland Protectorate at the time, which actually included part of the Northern Cape, right up to Botaung, Vryburg. Those were part of Botswana. We need to get our land back. It's about time. It's interesting here. When you say
came here
to come and negotiate, get our land back. Because we're the same people. I'm a Morolong, Wahatsidi, the Banala Bagaseleka, and around Mafikeng area, and all those are exactly the same people. Right down to Taung into Botswana, and the borders just came because the colonial masters, did the line, and we, Africans and our leaders just took them as they are, which is one of the big problems in my case why Africa is not developing, is because of these artificial borders that we have endorsed, unfortunately. So 1966, Botswana gets independence through the leadership of Sesra Tsakama, who's the founding father of Botswana. There's a whole story because he married a white lady. I talk about it in the book, which was very controversial because, as you can imagine, South Africa being a neighbor did not believe that a white lady should get married. They connived a little bit with the British. There's a whole sexy story around it, which is, there's even a film on it and all that. The marriage of inconvenience or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, in the end, even the regent chief of Bangwatu, his name is who was there for Seratsakama. Seratsakama was a student in the UK. He studied law in Oxford, Wabona, who actually did not agree with Kama marrying a white lady. So there was also pushback from the tribe to say, no, you can't. You are a king. You can't marry a white lady. So it was all on different fronts. But in the end, he had his way, married, pushed Botswana to independence in 1966, and then the country was born. Fortunately, towards the end of the 60s, diamonds were discovered in Orapa, later in 1982 in J.O.Y.R.E, and the story totally changed. One of the poorest countries in the world became one of the fastest developing countries in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, double-digit GDP growth, to now going right up to when the 1990s became an upper middle income country, as you can imagine, as one of the really tops in Africa. And really the fundamental thing there, which I talk about in the book, was how there are very few graduates at independence. People name it like we were 5.
No.
So a lot of even the MPs and the cabinet was made of teachers.
Sure.
But what touches me is that at those times, these guys were premised on the principle of Boto. You call it Ubuntu. So that's why they couldn't steal. That's why the resource curse did not hit Botswana. Under the, obviously the stewardship of Seretse Khama, they managed to lay the foundation. They discovered diamonds, one of the most profitable products in the world, and managed to make sure that these do not get abused in terms of the typical resource curse that bedeviled J.O.Y.R.E, a little bit of you as well, and the rest of Africa. So that I'm really thankful they set a very good foundation for Botswana.
And in the book, you advocate for Woot to come back.
Absolutely.
For us
absolutely.
to go back to that.
Yeah, and that's why I write about it, and I encourage a lot of people to unpack it, because sometimes, because we don't write, people just interpret Boto the way they want. I see. So we need to research, you guys at universities, from an even business school, how does Boto add to values with an organization that's dominated by the people of the continent. You see, and so Boto is
it sounds like you're coming to Gibbs to do your PhD. We have got a topic already.
Yeah, we sorted.
I can be a supervisor.
Just talk to Maurice.
We'll talk to Maurice and then we'll get it going.
No, Boto is I talk a lot about the science of happiness, and the more I research on it, and I was telling other people at a speech that I gave that, interestingly, the West is getting stuck because of the heightened issues of mental health in terms of leadership, and they're actually looking for answers. And guess where they're looking for answers? They're looking at African tribes like the Hutu tribe in Tanzania. They're looking at the Bushmen or the so-called Basarwa in Botswana to check the principles. And then we are just sitting. We are just sitting in the fancy office at Gibbs and walking around in Johannesburg instead of going back to the basics. And I say there, when you go there, you find who we are, the principles that we should not throw out, throwing out the baby with the bathtub, as they say. So I really believe that we should go back to who we are. Lovely. And then that, not only good for us, but we contribute that to the world. Just like in the East, they've got Buddhism, they've got Hinduism, they've got, the West is premised on Jerusalem in terms of Christianity. They also principle on Greece, which is the science and on side. So those angles are coming under review in the Western world. Now, what is our true north? What is our principles? This is what I read a lot of philosophy, and I'm always looking, who are the African philosophers? Where are the books? And going back to why I write a book, I just starting to know we've got to write our own thoughts as philosophers. We should stop quoting Jim Collins and this one and that one and Gustav Jung and Aristotle. Where are
the African philosophers?
So that Africa can be properly grounded. And Manda, sounds like a very light thing, or I'm really underestimating something that's big. But for me, the fact that we've got 1.3 billion people in this continent, similarly to same numbers as China, same numbers as India. China took almost 800 million people out of poverty within record time. That's never happened in history. India is doing the same thing. We are struggling, and you really have to introspect and say, what's really keeping Africa down? And for me, we need philosophical thinkers, we need deep thinkers on social science, deep thinkers in science and all that, so that we can come together and say, how the hell can we break this deadlock? Because our people deserve it. And that is why I speak, that's why I write, and I do these things. I've got a podcast like you to really try and transfer the message in terms of us having to introspect.
Lovely. Wow, if we had time, we'll spend the whole time. But when I read, I listened to your book on Audible, and I just felt like it's like a big brother kind of talking to me about your journey and some of the challenges entrepreneurs kind of go through, and some of the mistakes that they kind of fall into, and you're on the other side kind of going, hey, there's a better way. So maybe we start with 2 or 3 prominent challenges for young entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go towards the better way.
Yeah. Look, entrepreneurship has been made very sexy, very funky. Everybody wants to be Elon Musk. Everybody wants to be. What people don't realize that there are actually only 5% of true entrepreneurs in the world. They are really in minority.
5%.
5%. And when I went through this program in Canada, the strategic coach program, we try to unearth what really makes an entrepreneur. One of the things that make an entrepreneur is that they tend to go against the mode. They are very free on I don't know how your Setswana is like. But anyway, stick with the English. They are easy. They easily break the mode. They go against the grain quite easily. And I reflected on my life right from my young days with my mother as the firstborn, where I stood up and said, "Mother, we can't do this." When I was sponsored by Botswana to a course that I didn't like. I was 18 years old. They wanted to sponsor me for metallurgy.
Okay.
And I actually refused the scholarship. Say, I just found out that metallurgy makes you stick in the mines. I wanted to do a broader engineering.
Okay.
They were shocked. How dare this? Even when during the corporate, I challenged, the challenge that I posited with the mind, saying, let's do things differently. So that's one of the characteristics of
going against
the grain.
Now,
going against the grain in an environment of people who are very obedient, who are very calm. Someone was telling me Botswana. I think it was an Uber. He's saying, "Oh, Botswana, I like them because they're so cool, very calm and peaceful."
But not this one. This one wants to come take the land back.
Yeah. So that going against the grain is stressful. Okay. For you to run your business, I was listening to the former CEO of Uber saying, you can't succeed in business unless you work hard. So I worked so hard during my 30s, starting a business. My family suffered in terms of my time. I'll write about it in the book, coming back late at night and not having time to spend with the kids and my wife. At some stage, I almost got sick because of, you do strategy. I had 4 days with a client doing strategy. On the 5th day, I was seeing stars. My brain, something was happening. I was like, of course, you are working too hard. And then I tried to see, why do we work so hard? And there is what they call success addiction. There is what they call where you self-objectify yourself. In other words, when you read that,
I was just like, yo.
Yeah. When you become an object, almost detached from yourself to become a successful entrepreneur, a successful executive. These guys that walk around heading an SOE with a fancy car and all that. You check. Tony Robbins really, amazed me when he said he interviewed 50 billionaires. He said, in terms of happiness, he can only identify. He spent over hours with them, talking to them. Only 5 who are happy. So really, then I reflected and said, there's something just wrong with the way we don't visit the dark side of entrepreneurship, where time goes so fast, you're working so hard, material wealth become a big thing, the big house. And I said, no, man, life can be better than that. That's how the whole reflection of reducing this aspect of self-objectification, also success addiction, which leads to workaholism, that is really killing a lot of people. In the book, I talk about a couple examples. Some people that actually end up having serious mental problems, like I don't know if you know Anthony Bourdain, who was a documentary specialist, very popular. I used to watch his documentaries, beautiful stuff. Just to hear the next day that he's hung himself. Kate Spade, billionaire, very pronounced globally, killed himself. You could have had your local boy Trevor Noah, telling Steve Bartlett that he actually why he left, the Daily Show, because if you listen to him, that's self-objectification. He felt that he was detached from himself. He was really doing well, all the ratings, all that, but he was not happy. So those are the type of things that I'm referring to. As entrepreneurs, we got to go down to basics. That's why in the book now I started designing or looking at things that needs to be in place for you to become a truly successful and happy entrepreneur. If you look at guys like Mo Goddard. I don't know if you follow Mo Goddard. Mo Goddard was a former, business executive at Google. Big guy. He said, he had, I think, a house with 16 bedrooms, 9 cars, at about 29. And he crashed. He crashed because he says, what are these for?
Sure.
Well, there was also a wake-up call because he lost his son, 21 years old, at a very young age. So you got to, unfortunately, people are looking for disasters. I also had a wake-up call. I discussed in the book that at age 50, I was also diagnosed with a cancer, which I'm controlling right now. Quite well, I hope, God forbid.
Yes.
But that's, again, saying you might not just have tomorrow. Money. So I started researching and looking at material on this, and I talk about there's a lady called J.O.Y.R.E who talks about the 5 regrets of the dying. He spent ages with old people who are on their deathbed, and he interviewed them, and it's amazing how those 5 regrets really clicked with me. And I know you must have realized, you said you're 40. And when you're 40, time starts speeding up. Man, you speed up to your deathbed. That's just what it is. Are you doing all the right things that make you a complete person? That's related to who you are. That's why even in the book I talk about, first you go to assess who you are. We tend to, John Paul Sartre, the French philosopher, talks about how we live in bad faith. Bad faith means this objectification, this living to show off people, and then you forget who you are. So you are almost in denial. So that is why in this book I talk about how you got to find yourself, find what takes. I love fun so I found out the things that being aging does not mean that you shouldn't have fun. So when I go on stage to speak, I dance because I like dancing. Some people say, isn't that embarrassing? I say, no, but that's you
enjoyed it.
And everybody starts smiling because I led the whole hall to stand up and do a little dance. And that's what Africans are. We are Africans. We don't have to start putting on fancy suits, ties, and all just because they do it in New York. We got to start doing things the African way. The Japanese, the Chinese, they didn't ditch their languages. They didn't ditch their cultures. They still like that tea culture. But Rona, the nouveau rich B guys, 18-year-old whiskey and fancy sneakers from. That's really. I'm joking about it. But what I'm saying is we got to find answers for the African entrepreneur so that we can be more successful. Okay. Now that's really the.
Now let's deep dive into happiness. Because some people might feel like this is a fleeting thing. Happiness could be a thing. It's a moment when Sundowns wins, right? But it sounds to me like you're saying, actually, happiness is something we can pursue, and the happier you are, the more successful you might actually be as an entrepreneur. And it's not something that we need to wait until we've got the big monies and the titles and all of that stuff. Talk to me about happiness.
See, that's exactly where I had my thoughts in terms of happiness before I went into the research and I observed people. I talk a lot about my mother who went through a very difficult marriage, very gritty, very resilient. But when I look at it, she was quite happy. She would dance. She had a very strong relationships with her sister. She emanated from South Africa, by the way, and they got married in Botswana, from Lihurutsi and all that. And she made sure that all these South Africans who had, some of them ran to Botswana during apartheid days. They had their own connection in Botswana, Kosas and what there. So she hooked up and they had very, very strong relationships. So trying to find out why she was happy. One of the things was the fundamental human condition of connecting with other people. I mentioned this one because it's one of the things that are really destroying Africans who are trying to modernize. Now, going back to find out why the world is going sad and unhappy. By the way, this is a global problem. And unfortunately, in Africa, it's worse. There is a United Nations happiness report that gets launched every year. It's been running now for over 10 years. I always look at it with such sadness because the dominant countries in terms of the ones with the lowest levels of happiness are coming from Africa. And it's sad because being on the lowest rand of economy or poverty does not mean you should be unhappy. And I talk about it in the book whereby, I grew up, as I said, part of my stint as a young lad, I was in a village we were not even eating meat. There were no snacks. There was no TV. There was nothing.
Yes.
But believe me, man, we were happy. We used to
Yeah,
play. We used to, run after the goats and all that. We were happy. I sometimes even argue with my friends. Said, no, you cannot be happy when there's no TV. I was like, stuff you. But very, very happy. So that's reflected on me that actually happiness is a state of mind. And the state of mind, it is when comparison starts coming in, where you start comparing yourself with the neighbor, with who, where you start now feeling down because you are comparing yourself. So this got me to actually design a formula for happiness.
Right.
Okay?
Let's
say,
unpack
how do
the
you
formula for happiness.
Exactly.
We're going to figure this out.
Yeah, so I looked at, philosophy. People like Aristotle have been talking about happiness for, 2,500 years ago. If you read the book Nicomachean Ethics, he talks about, the power of friendship and things like that. And then also there's also Epicurus who talked about happiness. John Locke talks about tabula rasa, the principle of that when you are born with an empty slate in your head. So you can actually influence without being dictated by the environment. I love John Locke and his philosophy of the time. But of lately, there's a movement called positive psychology, which is led by a gentleman called Martin Seligman out of UPenn, who said he was tired of being a counselor and therapist, looking at people who are already not well. He says, look, I'm tired. Some people lied to me and all that. Now I'm turning into making happy people happier. In other words, instead of waiting for people who are -4, -3, I'm now working with the +2 to move into +4 or +6, because then there's a less chance that you can drop to the bottom. So I looked at his models. It's all there YouTube. Some of you who like to check out Martin Seligman. There is also a lady called Sonja Labomirsky, Dan Gilbert from Harvard. So I looked at all that material and also our African perspective from a Boto perspective. So I came in with a model. First of all, these are what the neuroscientists say. You cannot go into peak performance, and I hope the entrepreneurs are listening. You can not go into peak performance unless you're happy, because it triggers all your happiness hormones, like dopamine, endorphin. These are critical to put you in a very good, creative, settled mind for your prefrontal cortex to start working at full force. That is why in the formula, which I named J.O.Y.R.E, it's joy, J-O-Y, R stands for relationships, E for engagement, P, purpose or meaning.
Lovely.
Those 4 equals true, complete happiness in life.
Beautiful.
Now, this is the joy part, which is fun, which people see as fleeting, because you do become happy, then you're out. But it's the purpose, it is strong relationships, it's making sure that you are in an occupation that talks to who you are as a being, your unique abilities, your talents. You are living them every day in your engagement. That's where engagement comes in. So start with the joy. The joy really means, please have fun. The Africans have lost their fun swag. That is why some of the funniest comedians, Trevor Noah, the best music, the best dances, all that stuff that's done, you find that the black people are dominating because we had there. Okay, so joy really means be playful. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Play, like I said, I dance before this.
Yes.
I sing. My sons always say, "You're embarrassing us, Papa." But that's who we are. There's no who. If I sing along the corridor when I go to the local shops, the ladies at the till, I start singing. Some of them they join me. I don't care. That is my spirit. That is, you know what I mean. So joy is extremely important, and that's why I start with it to say first find your strength, find the stuff that may. And in the book I talk about how you should assess and find a formula. Do a happiness, a joy or fun audit to ascertain what makes, because my fun is different from yours.
Yes.
Okay, so you got to do that in short. And then the next one, remember J.O.Y.R.E is relationships. If there's anything that puts people in a good mood, that can make you live longer, and this is, I don't know how much you know about the blue zones, which is the people that the
you can unpack for all of us.
The blue zones are areas around the world that have been identified to have the most centenarians, the people who live longest. These are some place near Costa Rica where you can have 100-year-old still on a horse ride, and very, very old people. And they try to find out what are the 9 critical elements that make them live so longer. And one of them is strong relationships. Sure. I cannot emphasize. So, my man, if you've got, that's why I talk so much. We could have a whole podcast talking about friends. Okay. Make sure that you have friends. When there was a survey in Europe around what makes people happiest at any point in time, you wouldn't be surprised that the interaction with friends actually was the top one. Sure. I mean, when you want to laugh loud is when you are with your buddies again.
Of course.
Interesting that it's, family comes after that. People always think with a family.
Oh, wow.
But really,
for friends.
Because you are the freest. You are the most vulnerable. So friends, family, community, stop. And I'm saying this because isolation is killing people. They say isolation and loneliness is the really new epidemic. It's been declared an epidemic in the States because people are so lonely. They said from statistics globally, within 2 weeks, you have over 300 million people living without talking to anybody. I mean, that's not good.
2 weeks?
2 weeks without talking to anybody. And I see it because I see young entrepreneurs who just lock themselves in rooms. Obviously, social media has not helped because they spend time on Instagram and all that. That's not a relationship. That's not the relationship I'm talking about.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of stuff that's working against. When we grew up, when I'm under our house, when we moved into Oabona, we had those metal fences where my mother would talk to the neighbor. We actually even made holes on those fences because we would go play with the next door. And these days now you have walls. Unfortunately, places like Botswana, they copy from you guys because you started doing all these screen walls and wires and be of this and be of this. And unfortunately, we thought we thought that's that shows what I'm developing. I'm like in Sentin. Then you got walls. I'm saying it's joking, but this is what prevents relationships. Sure. People don't know what their neighbor's name is. People don't have tea anymore. So relationships is very critical. And then after relationship,
this one, so you quote Arthur Brooks a bit. So he came to teach in one of the programs. Okay. But he's got this thing that there's largely 2 types of friends: the deal friends and useless friends.
Yeah, useless friends.
Yeah. Just unpack that.
Now that came from Aristotle, by the way. Arthur picked up from Aristotle.
Okay.
Aristotle, Nicomachean ethics.
Okay.
So this is what he said. He said there are 3 types of friends. Okay. In the hierarchy. Yeah. The lowest one is the one where you are transactional, like your business partner.
Yeah, deal friends.
These are the guys that because you get something from it.
Yes.
You meet, but in the lunch, either you are business partners or your work colleagues or whatever. Those are deal friends. Okay?
Yes.
And then the second lot is pleasure friends.
All right.
Pleasure friends are guys that you go watch sundowns together.
Yes.
You never really get close, but you're just buddies. It's good. You need to have that once in a while, but they're not really true loving friends.
That's true. Yes.
Then the best one that needs to happen in terms of truth and where friendship becomes a virtue is when you have your what you call useless friends. These are guys that you love, you like them, you want to be with them. When you meet, you don't talk peripheral, Arsenal, Sundowns. You're talking about how's your family, how's the kid, I want to come visit you, check my nieces and that type of thing. That's really hearty friendship that unfortunately is dying.
Yes.
Especially for men. If we had time, I'll now talk about the difference between men and friends and women and friends.
Okay.
Yeah, we had time.
Okay, we had time. All right.
Yeah. So those are
relationships. So J.O.Y.R.E spoke about the relationships
and engagement. Engagement. Being a Gibbs guy, you must know about.
Not.
Is it about Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, the guy who wrote Flow?
Oh yes,
flow.
Yes.
It's all about flow. This is something that I fortunately I managed to crack at an early age when I resigned from Botswana.
Oh, good.
Is to ascertain who you are, what makes you tick, and make sure that your occupation and trade actually aligns to who you are. You're with me? I like consulting because I like things. I research. I like, when you do strategies like a game. When I'm with an executive team or a board, we're saying, how can we play this? I'm in my element. That's me.
Yeah.
It might not be you. It might not be another Joe or whatever, but that's me. So you make sure that you manipulate the world so that you get occupied in something that, the work that when you do, work at the time stops.
And the heart rate even drops.
It drops, you become calmer, even dopamine comes in, all those type of things. So it's actually good for your health.
Yes.
Because people, I've seen it when I'm underway, people are doing things I don't like.
Sure.
You can see they are miserable in their careers, they become negative, they become toxic because they're doing it simply for money.
Sure.
And they've got a lot of that in Africa, by the way. Because I tell people this and they say, but Kgengwenyane, where do I go? Because there I need to earn the living. It's unfortunate because of our conditions, we don't have too many options. It's unfortunate, but I say still, it's not all lost to actually find out a job. There are a lot of tests these days that you can do to ascertain what makes you tick. They even
and I worry that too many people are not taking some of these tests.
Exactly.
And some of them cost nothing. And still
they're becoming cheaper and cheaper on online. Absolutely. No. So it goes back to know thyself and make sure that whatever your occupation is aligned to yourself. Then you just swim. Then going to work is like it just becomes natural.
You skip dance to work.
And then so that's engagement. After engagement, then comes purpose.
Right.
You cannot. They say when you have a purposeful life, you can actually live 7 years more. Simply because why would you have mental issues? Why would you think of committing suicide when you believe that you got a mission?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
I talk about in the book, I talk about my mission. It's very clear. It's really to add positive impact, especially to Africa, so they can make a difference in the development of our continent.
Lovely.
Just simple as that.
Lovely.
That's what I do at InnoLead. That's what I do with the farming practice, that I do with the podcast. That's what I do when I go speaking across the world.
Excellent.
That's it. So everybody needs to, and again, there are tools to define your purpose. Very simple tools. And the best book that I recommend, obviously, is by Viktor Frankl.
In Search for Meaning.
Yes, Search for Meaning, because that's the one where just because he had that sense of purpose, meaning he managed to survive all the Holocaust stuff and all that very deep and sorry state of affairs in terms of what. But he managed to live up to 93 because after losing the mother, the wife, the brothers through the Holocaust, but because and he really relays the story in a very vivid way that can tell you what actually you are not having bad time. Why are you having mental issues and all that? So purpose is extremely make sure that you have a sense of meaning on life. The way you walk, the way you communicate, the way you talk, you got to make sure that talking about that, when I was young, at primary school, there was a guy who's late. He's a friend of mine. He's unfortunately passed away very early. I used to walk around at school when I was doing standard 6, standard 7. He still, when I'm on, the way you walk around, you're going to really conquer the world. He was saying I was walking straight. He's walking straight. I never forget that because especially when I went for his funeral, I was like, this guy, now he's gone, but he's the one who said that the way I walk. Yeah. And sometimes, and I know I'm sometimes very uncomfortable to talk about yourself, but it's really for purpose of learning. That if you have a sense of purpose, the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you command yourself, in terms of and confidence does not mean arrogant. You've got to be careful of that, because Ubuntu should always be the undertone. So those are the things that you really need to be. So that J.O.Y.R.E.
Beautiful
true success.
Beautiful formula. So now I'm curious about what might we do to be a little bit more happy?
To be happier. Okay, this is what let's maybe focus on, and I have the 8 keys that I recommend in the book in terms of making sure that you are happy. And I'll just pick.
Before you go to the 8 keys, talk to me about Thursdays.
Because
and to hear this
man, we need to manipulate the world for our own good.
Okay.
So this is exactly what happened, and it goes back to what I said, that we live in bad faith. There's a professor out of Harvard, Professor Keegan. He talks about when we evolved, we get through what the world is authoring us. He calls it social authoring. I think I talk about it in the book as well, where because you are brought into this world, you assume everything and you play to the book of the world.
Yes.
And you do that in your 20s. You go to school. Obviously, you get given a template. Then you go in corporate. Then corporate, you get told this is how you perform. This is your thing. And then when I got to leave corporate, I found out there must be another way. and Keegan calls that now when you start self-authoring yourself. Self-authoring.
Okay.
Does it ring a bell, buddy?
No.
So you move from being social authored
to self-authoring.
Okay. And then the earlier that comes, the better.
Right.
Because it goes back to John Paul Sartre about bad faith.
Okay.
Basically, you are just complying to the things that have been given to you in life. So that is the most liberating. So what I said is like, why should you work 5 days? I'm going back to Thursday. Why should you? First, first I'm a workaholic. I know that. I've got a weakness of just driving.
You just love to work.
So I said, okay, on Monday, I've divided the week.
Okay.
Monday is a planning week. No meetings, just planning myself, how the week is going to go, and also I plan with the team.
Right.
You know, priorities for the team. Are we working on a proposal? Are we working on this? Who's helping you? Who's there? You know, low, utilization is a big thing in consulting. So that's Monday.
Yeah.
No meeting, no external. Tuesday and Wednesday are called do days or focus days, because that's when now I'm doing work that's billable. I know in consulting again, you know, delivering whether a speech or a podcast or looking at a report or motivating the team or whatever, that's real work. And I said, typically myself, by Wednesday, I'm kaput, to borrow Africans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By that time, I'm tired. So I said, so why don't I chill on Thursday?
Okay.
So Thursday, since 2015, has been declared my fun day, where I do my own thing. I go to the gym, I get a massage, I connect with the family and that type of thing.
The whole day?
The whole day. When I get to the office, the team, I've got a firm set charge. They charge me at the office because the contract, and I tell you, the company has not gone down. The company has done actually very well. After I took out the Thursday from the book. And then on Friday, usually is when I meet key clients. You know, I call it meeting center of influence.
Can you just
you
just have a week like that?
So that's where I have coffee.
Because I'm on the workaholic side, right?
Yeah, I know. I suspect so. Yeah, you're in the same industry as me. So it's going to make you sick, my man, if you don't manage it and start embracing these happiness principles. That's really what I just want. Healthy, rounded, performing. Remember I said you can't perform unless you're happy. And that's really the agenda for Africa. To get everybody and going back to the basics, because these principles are in our ancient philosophies. Sure. You know, you see the Basara family, some of them are still there in Botswana. You know, Will Smith visited one of them.
Okay.
Where in the evening they dance around the fire. You see the father with the little son and all that. Where do we see a father dancing with the? Sure. And that's what they do in the blue zones as well. You know, they come together, they celebrate a lot. You know, people celebrate. That's when, remember, all these different hormones like endorphins, oxytocin, on love, and all those, that are good for your immune system. So they protect you. Wabona. So it's not just for the fake of doing it. It actually protects you, and that's why in the blue zones they get to live longer. Wabona. So it's part of
So Thursday.
Yeah. So Thursday is my day, dude. So don't give me work. Don't. Yeah.
So you will
just chill. I wake up at my own time. You know, have coffee. And then I, like I said, do the gym,
go to the farm as well, no?
Go to the farm because it's quite far. So I do it end of the month. Then I go for a weekend, three days there at the farm, which again is another chill, peaceful, dark. I sleep well. Like my most creative, some of the best thoughts that came into the book was at the farm. Because it's peaceful, you got a chicken there, a bed there, a goat, a sheep, and and it's just amazing. You know, we've got such beautiful things. I mean, when I tell the Canadian entrepreneurs and the USA, they said, "When are we coming to your farm?" You know, that's what Africa is there to provide. I mean, if you look at Botswana, you know, so sparsely populated, so much felt, so much to see. I mean, open skies, a lot of wild animals. I mean, where we stay just outside Gaborone, our biggest battle is snakes and what. And it's because we are still attached to nature. Sure. Yeah. So that's the Thursdays, my man.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So the Thursday one hit me hard. You lead a consulting firm and you can just clear out the whole Thursday.
Yeah. And you can since 2015, Since 2015.
11 years. Right. Okay. Some of the elements. Oh, what time is it? Some of the elements that we must consider to be
in terms of the part of the HR. I'll pick some. The top one. Always have to go to social relations, guys. Let's kill loneliness.
Sure.
I don't know if you've got friends. I don't know how tight you are with your family, because Africans are now trying to copy this, Western nuclear family thing where you just round yourself there, watch TV and what, and break the connections that you have with your cousins. When was the last time you talked to your cousins, come together with? So please, entrepreneurs, this is essential. You're just beyond the entrepreneurs. So I'll just say, as we've discussed, just build social capital around yourself in terms of healthy connections. The entrepreneurs are so special. That's why they need to live longer. That's my agenda. You see, there's no point trying to save the world and then you're gone. You're gone. I mean, there are a lot of examples of guys that gone. I mean, some of them, a tech guy, who left very early. We needed a lot more. Sure. And he lived a very stressful life. So there is that thing of in terms of just sort out your social, your human connections in terms of, and you have to be proactive. It's interesting. People now, I mean, there are guys in the States who are teaching people how to make friends. We've lost a very basic human condition, making friends. No, this is how bad things are when I'm going. You know, so you got to go back to that because
Simon Sinek is doing a lot of talks
exactly.
on friendship.
Yeah, it's about friendship because he suffered. I mean, he's also dropped a tear about him and being able to call friends and all that because guys are lonely, and the higher you go in the echelons of business, the lonelier it becomes. Sure. You know, because sometimes I even struggle to connect with your team members because they see you as the, you're going to be looking at my appraisal, what, so how can I be your friend? So,
how can I dance with you?
You get even more isolated. And please, loneliness is killing. I mean, that's I mean, they say loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 packs of cigarettes a day in terms of the fatalities annually from loneliness. So that's one. So please, entrepreneurs, connect with everybody else. The other one, which is more physiological, which I did, and life started becoming a lot better, is when I started catching up with sleep.
Now this man, first he wants me to clear out Thursday, and now he wants me to sleep. When am I going to run a business? This is the part you edit out.
Sleep deprivation. It's one of, I mean, in the UK, they now have a sleep institute. But what? It's tormenting. And really, it's copying, you know, because why I'm saying I can relate to it, because when I go to the farm, you know, chill. In the evening after seeing the cattle and the veld and the goats and the sheep, then, you know, fire is made. We sit around the fire around 7. No TV. There's no TV there. So it's time to chill. I'm very sad that there's a connection now. I didn't want, before there was no connection. So there was even no phone. So you just sit and meditate, fire and the dark and the stars. I mean, Jesus. Guys pay from all over the world to come and experience that in Africa.
That is true.
So that is very expensive. You can't believe it. When you sit there quiet, meditating, by the time it's 8 p.m., I'm like, because of all the calm. And then thereafter, and I say in the book, then if my wife is not there, I don't even brush my teeth. I just because I'm saving the sleep. And then when I go into bed, in Setswana we say, I'm gone. Then you know, man, when I wake up at 6 a.m. or 6 after a nice 8, 10, 9 hours sleep, you know, you feel like you've been born again. I'm saying this because in cities there's so much pollution, there's so much light, there's so much noise. You actually don't go into what they call deep sleep. Deep sleep is the one where your body starts repairing stuff, where it's like going into a garage at night. And unfortunately, we take our bodies for a very little time in the garage and the repairs don't happen. And you get surprised when you get blood pressure. These are hypertension. And when you say, I need to do this, it's because, again, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, cancer, all these are on the rise in Africa. So I'm not doing this. There's a 40% rise in diabetic cases in Africa compared to the rest of the world. It's actually and it's because of partly poor sleep. And the last one before we end, I'm picking out of the 8. And guys, I can say more about the 8, but let's pick. And then the other one, which is very basic and it's very cheap to do, is food. It's eating the right food. You know, I still get mad when I'm in workshops in Johannesburg. People are still bringing pastries. Guys, bread, soda, pap, all that. All these things. Pap is not an African thing. Pap was the discovery of the mill and the agricultural revolution, and then having lots of pap and having lots of flour in the 18th century. That's what came as grain. Obviously, that's why obviously it was helping with starvation, with huge populations and that stuff like that. But in the end, it's really bad because of the sugar spikes that happen, because starches, pap, rice, bread, all that, I'll say, just reduce those big time. I like my pap, so I'll have it once a week. You know, in a small portion.
So this man, he wants me to not work on Thursday. He wants me to sleep all the time. He wants me to not have my pap.
Exactly. You need pop guys. I know how much. I know
we have pap for breakfast and lunch and supper.
Same thing in Zambia. In Zambia, the rate of diabetes is bad. The thing is, you do that, but you don't exercise, so you don't burn it out. So it's just a terrible combination. No, man. I mean, my poor Africans. If we don't go back to our basic wholesome foods, just go back to your zengwe. I don't even know zengwe. Your millet. Go back to your beans. Right now we have about 3 bean meals every week at home. Different types of beans. Beans are powerful for your microbiome. that are very, very powerful. So we have beans, snack with peanuts, stop snacking with bread-related type stuff. You know, make sure that you have obviously stuff that comes from the ground. And just know that we are under attack with the big marketers of all these things, stuff that's in cans and packets. Focus on stuff that's out of the way in these big shops. That's where you will be able to live longer. So food is a big thing where Africa, I can just categorically say Africa is suffering. People are burying people because of food. Because it leads to, I mean, right now in Botswana, the amount of strokes and heart attacks and heart failure, simply part of it is because we've really messed up. And this is not just me. I mean, the former director of FDA in the States talks about how, because of the influx of ultra-processed foods, the metabolic system of human beings has actually changed for the worse, leading to this terrible incidence of chronic diseases. And these are the 3 diseases that I was talking about. I mean, there are others like, you know, fatty liver and that type of, even dementia is also linked to bad food. So you got to look at it, and we eat too much. I'm one of them that I mentioned. No, because even before
he wants me to not eat.
Even before I researched this, I used to wonder, you know, because I like following animals. So I used to, you know, in Botswana we've got lions, you go to the parks, and I was like, why is a lion can be able to go on for 2 weeks without eating? And that's cool. I just found out actually not eating is actually a good thing because the system needs to reboot.
Why did we invent this man?
Yeah. So I do 2 meals a day.
2 meals a day?
2 meals a day. You know, I don't have my breakfast, so I do late breakfast. So they say this fasting of about 16 hours is very good for your system. You're giving a break, your blood sugar stabilizes, and so you are really staying away from your hypertension and your diabetic type thing, and even cancer, because all these cause a lot of inflammation, which can lead to cancer. So, and then cutting on sugar. I mean, sugar is a real poison. I mean, sugar is poison. You know, just period. Guys should just cut on sugar, and obviously sugar. I mean, there is more sugar in a slice of white bread is really, really bad. It's really, really bad. And in America, they average that they're having about 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. 22. It's really bad. Yeah, equivalent in terms of looking at the starches and the sugar that they take in, and hence this whole chronic disease. So unfortunately, we're just copying. And then, you know, us Africans, I want to go to... We think that's part of modernization. These guys are sending us to a grave. Just how it is. And their marketing is awesome. That's why even our kids, I mean, kids are so overweight because of all these. I mean, it's so sad to see a mother who's fit, and yet he's got a little one, he's 10 years old, and he's busy buying chocolate still in the shop. That's what. I mean, it's yeah. So it's really sad, and we need it. Unfortunately, from a policy perspective, from a restrictions point of view, you know, the government of South Africa, the government of Botswana, they're not doing anything about it. And what I'm saying is that it will hamper our growth, the GDP that we need to be able to catch up with. I mean, how can you have a continent with 1.3 billion people, 55 countries, and only one country is a high-income country, Seychelles. And Seychelles is because Seychelles is like a 400,000 people. That's why it's a high-income country. We need to make sure that we have our people are sharp, they're healthy, they're productive, they're creative. And all these principles that I've been talking about can lead to that. And hopefully it can lead to our countries developing faster. And this South African 1.2% GDP, and you're celebrating, we still have to talk about that.
Wow. Thank you so much. If we had more time, we will dive in some more. But I think as we discussed, we're going to find more opportunities to
we're going to talk about Africa, as I said.
Yes.
Africa,
Lovely.
It's a pleasure, my man.
Thanks so much. Where can people find the book?
They can find the book. It's all over in Amazon. So Amazon, you got the audio book, Kindle book, hardcover, you can order. Otherwise, in Botswana, we've got them in the exclusive books. So we're busy negotiating here with exclusive books to have the copies here so that people can pick them up in the shelf. So that's where one can get the books.
Lovely. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Wabona.
Right here. Not Michael.
Not Michael. Right here in studio.
Thanks,
Thank you.
My first podcast on the South African soil. So
oh,